from lots of people. So
1.
Okay. So I'm going to go in backwards order because I actually want to show you what this baked French toast looks like when it comes out of the oven. Because I have one in the oven and it is ready. So this is the reverse order here. This is our baked French toast at the end when it comes out. So it's like really golden and puffed. And that will all make sense soon. You will see what we start with and then what we end up with. All right, so I'm going to start the first thing, and this is a really good job for kids to do if there are kids making this recipe, is I'm going to start with about a pound of challah. This is challah that I made, and it was a really big loaf, so I'm using about half of it. So you want about a pound, and we're going to cut it up into 1-inch pieces so that you could do this with a knife, or if you have kids doing it, they could tear it just into little pieces about that big. But I'm going to use a knife and cut it into some squares.
And now Harriet Isaac is joined as well.
That's my mother. You will all know that I have a supportive family.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we're gonna have our challah all cut up. And then basically what we're going to do is make essentially a custard. This technique is very similar to making like a bread pudding. It's a little moister and a little eggier than bread pudding, but very similar in that you start with cubed bread and you pour custard over the top and then bake it. So just another second here. And once you have your bread all cubed up, you can throw it into, I have a 9x13 pan that I have greased. You don't have to grease it too heavily, but I greased mine with butter. You could use spray, but you want to lightly grease it. So my bread cubes are going to go into my baking dish, and I've got my oven preheated to 375. If you're going to make this right away, oh, you should know too, I'm sorry, I'll take it back a step. So we're going to make this egg mixture, and it's going to sit on our bread cubes for at least an hour. You can do it up to a day ahead of time. If you're going to make it the same day, you're going to let the egg mixture soak into your bread for about an hour and then bake it at 375. You could also, at that point, and I'll mention this again when we get to this step, if you wanted to have this as sort of like a make-ahead type of dish, you could also make your egg mixture, pour it on top of the bread cubes, and then freeze it. So you're going to freeze it before you bake it.
Wow.
You can always reheat it after you've made it, so if you wanted to take it all the way through the final step, you can. But I sort of think you're likely to have a little bit more success with freezing it if you freeze it unbaked and then let it thaw overnight before you bake it. All right, so I've got all of my bread cubes in my baking dish. And now I'm going to put together my custard, my egg mixture. So in a large mixing bowl, I've got 6 eggs, and those are all going to go in. I have 1/3 cup of brown sugar. I have a teaspoon of vanilla extract. I have 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, and 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. All of that goes right in. And then I have 1 cup of heavy cream. So this is, indulgent, but it's for Mother's Day after all. And 2 cups of whole milk. So we're gonna whisk all of that together. I like to kind of stab my egg yolks before I whisk. I find that it helps them incorporate a little bit more quickly. Stab that guy. And you want to just whisk until you're not looking for anything super foamy. You just want it all sort of uniform and well incorporated. Rabbi Jaffe has a question. You can definitely use 2% or skim milk if that's what you happen to have. It's going to be a little richer with the whole milk, but I mean, if you're using heavy cream at that point, you know. But yes, if you wanted to substitute a different kind of milk. And the truth is you actually could probably make this non-dairy. You could use plant-based milk, and for the heavy cream, you could use coconut milk. Give it a little bit of richness. So my egg mixture is, I'm afraid to tilt it too much and pour it all over my computer. My egg mixture is nicely incorporated. So I'm just gonna pour this right over the top of my bread cubes. And if you, like me, didn't quite get the brown sugar mixed in at the end, no problem. You just whisk that on its own. And drizzle that all over the top. All right, so then this is gonna go into the refrigerator, and you'll see that these cubes are like little sponges that suck up all of this yummy liquid. And you're gonna put that into the oven, the refrigerator for about at least an hour to 2 hours, but you can even do it for a day. And you have the option at this point of freezing it. So I would do a layer of plastic wrap over the top and then foil over that. And you can freeze it right in your baking dish. And then, so if you wanted to make it Sunday, today's Thursday, so you would freeze it today, and then you would take it out of the freezer Saturday night, so that Sunday morning it's ready to go into the oven. So you finish the recipe at this point after you thaw it. So we're going to pretend that I have had this in the refrigerator for at least an hour, and it's soaked up all of the delicious custard. The last thing that you're going to do before it goes into the oven is, I've got 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar and a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I'm just stirring that together to make a cinnamon sugar mixture. And I've got 3 tablespoons of melted butter. So you're gonna just drizzle the butter evenly over the top. And then you're gonna sprinkle an even layer of cinnamon sugar over that. All right. It looks like a lot, and it is good.
Yeah.
It makes it good. Okay, and then that goes into the oven at 375 for about 35 to 45 minutes. And what you're looking for is for the liquid to sort of become set, and for the French toast to have really puffed up, and you want it to be sort of nice and golden. So I'll show you what mine looks like. Mine has been out of the oven for a few minutes, so it's sort of deflated, but when it first came out, it was nice and puffed, as I think you saw. So it's like that. And what you want to do is let it, after it comes out of the oven, you want to let it sit for about 10 minutes to sort of calm down. And then you can serve it a few different ways. I like to serve it with fresh fruit. So I've got some sliced strawberries here. And maple syrup is delicious. I happen to think that it looks really pretty with powdered sugar. And I'll show you my trick that I sort of like. So I like to take a little wire mesh tea ball, which I think gives you a little bit more control than a strainer does. And I just use that. Load it up with powdered sugar. And I just sprinkle it on top that way. But you could use a sifter or a fine mesh strainer, whatever you happen to have. I think powdered sugar looks really pretty. And then if you wanted to, you could serve the fruit on the side or sort of scatter some berries over the top. It makes a pretty presentation. And you could, obviously you could plate it individually or you could bring it to the table just like this. And that is baked challah French toast.
Yum.
I have a question or two. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Because as a resident dad who's going to be making this, and first of all, that looks amazing. Question number one is before you baked it, do you need to sort of push around the challah pieces to all get evenly soaked, or is it, if some doesn't have the egg mixture in it all the way, does it become like dry at the top?
You shouldn't have to, because there's a lot of, the ratio of liquid to challah is pretty high. So what you're likely to find is that when you take it out of the refrigerator, you'll look at it and think, oh my gosh, there's so much liquid, this is never gonna cook. But if it does happen that you feel like it's not all covered, it's certainly fine to give it a stir as you're putting it into the refrigerator. If it looks like it's not covered enough. But I think it's unlikely that you'll have that problem just because of the ratio of liquid to bread.
Second question, thank you. I know this is already quite the indulgent, I said dessert, it says breakfast, but it's almost like a dessert. What would it mean if the chocolate chips were sprinkled throughout as well? Does it mean with, or is that just too much?
I mean, is it too much? I don't think so. No, you could definitely stir in chocolate chips. You could also stir fruit in. We could do some blueberries stirred in. And if you were going to do blueberries, you could also add a little bit of lemon zest because blueberries and lemon are nice friends. But yes, chocolate chips, I mean, why not?
Your mother's asking a question in the chat.
Oh, what size pan did I use? I used a 9 by 13.
Got it. Right.
Perhaps one that belonged to you at one point.
Question, if you've made one and you've prepped one, does that mean that your kids are eating one of these for dinner now?
That is exactly what is happening. My kids are living their best life, for sure.
They should thank us at the synagogue. Great. And are you going to freeze the one you just made, or are you going to eat that one Sunday morning?
I am not going to eat that one on Sunday morning, and I am going to freeze it. Yes.
So because Mitch is making you something for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. This is great. Do you have a suggested drink that goes with this? Would you suggest as part of that a morning alcoholic drink, or no?
Well, I mean, yes, and in particular, if you're putting chocolate in this, then let's go all the way. Yeah, I think that certainly a mimosa is always a fun thing. I like to, or you could just have a glass of, I happen to love sparkling rosé, and you could throw a few berries right into the glass. Certainly cutting it with some sort of a fruit juice. Peach nectar is really nice, kind of a Bellini style, or grapefruit juice, or some sort of strawberry puree with a sparkling wine is always, I mean, you can't go wrong.
All right.
You could always spike mom's coffee. That's another way to go. So a hot adult beverage.
Good suggestions. I'll keep all these in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is great. I'm going to bring the recording to a close here, so I know you can spend some time saying hi to your family as well. I'm stopping it. Thanks, everyone. Have a good time cooking.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.